Okay, is it recording?
Okay. Act normal, act normal.
Yes, actually, take a dip.
Yeah. I am Marloes van Son. I'm an artist working with sound and electronics and a lot of woodwork, as you can see in the exhibition. I started working with electronics many years ago, kind of from the beginning of my artistic career. I studied a program called Art Science in the Netherlands, and since then I've just continued working with electronics. Then at some point I moved to Finland. I started to get more and more interested in craftsmanship, or aspects of art and design. I extended my woodworking practice, and then I also started to more actively perform, make music, create some sound pieces, interactive sound installations and such. A lot of different objects, but for me they all share a kind of common interest in that they include some kind of found object. Some pieces were made from found or repurposed furnitures. Some pieces were, they include some found things from travels, some rocks that I collected, some electronic artifacts that I collected and repurposed, some things that I've had in storage for 15 years, and that connects to one of the things that I find really interesting, which is how we relate to our everyday objects, things that we find in our homes, things that we might have around us, things that we use every day. Some of these objects, they start to form a kind of special connection with us, and some of these objects don't, and I'm kind of interested in where is this division. Why do we feel very connected to some objects, and why do we not feel so connected to others? And that's one of the things that I try to explore in this exhibition, like how do we relate to these objects, some of which are very recognizable and very kind of dear to us, and some of them might not mean anything to you. And I connect that through the idea of hum. As the title of the exhibition is Mechanical Melody, Human Hum, I really like this sort of, this kind of you can cut this out. I need to think of the word. I'm very interested in this kind of contradiction where human hum is seen as something very soothing, whereas many of the noises that machines or technology make are seen as annoying. So as many of these objects in the exhibition include sound, some of them made by humans, some of them made by machines, like how do they form a kind of melody together, or a kind of soundscape? It depends. I spend a lot of time in my studio, as most artists do, and I move back and forth between sometimes doing woodwork, and then I transform my 26 square meter studio in a woodworking studio, and there's sawdust everywhere, and then later on I might transform it into a sound recording studio where I put up some blankets and muffle the space so that there's not too much external noise, and then it turns into an electronic studio, and I kind of bounce back and forth between these things. So some of the objects start from the woodwork, some of them start from the found objects, and then some of them start from some kind of sound, and then I kind of go back and forth between these things. I find those very important. I try to design the objects and artworks in a way that people can somehow relate to them and that it feels intuitive to approach them. So I really enjoy observing people from around the corner, that they won't know that I'm there, and then see their kind of natural reaction towards things. And I try to play with that. So I usually don't want to tell people what to do in an exhibition. I just kind of want them I want to nudge them in the direction that I find interesting, so that they feel like they are exploring it and that they are kind of finding out what is happening in the space.
Perfect.
I want them to feel curious about how things work and how things might be able to work differently. And maybe I want them to think about the connections that they have with certain objects, and maybe they find some kind of memory or something that they have experienced before through some of the things that I found or built or highlight in the exhibition.
Okay, very good.
I think I would like people to first approach things with a kind of open mind, and then it's kind of up to the viewer. So of course, like, I would be very happy if somebody has a very special experience, but it's not necessary. I think people can experience things in the way that they feel comfortable with, or in the way that they relate to something in that moment. So they're allowed, but it's not something that I require of people, that they really go into a hugely reflective state. But if they do, then sure, like, I'm happy with that.
Perfect.
I kind of embrace it, I guess, in a way. Since I work with a lot of technology, I can't always control 100% how things react or what happens. And the same with woodwork. Like, you cut something once and maybe it's a very specific piece of wood, and then if you make a mistake, you just have to deal with it. You can't undo stuff. So I try to sort of reshape it from there, because it's anyway a process in which I work. So I kind of continue from there. If you look closely at many of these works, they might have like a tiny correction somewhere, like a piece that I cut a tiny bit too short, and then I had to add a corner, or somewhere where there's maybe like a chip missing, and then I either changed the shape of something, or I added it in a different way. And I think that adds something beautiful to the work, because it's made by a human, not by a machine. So these imperfections, they sort of belong to the piece. Depends how lost, if I get lost in what way I get lost, I guess. Like, because there's this kind of like beautiful forgetting time, being one with the piece, which is of course amazing. And then sometimes you just get stuck when you build something. I often just leave it for a couple of months. I just put it in a corner, and then it exists there, and then I work on something else. And then at some point, that piece might also start to make sense, or I make a connection between things that weren't connected before, and then that restarts the process. Why what?
Why forum books?
Forum books. It's a beautiful space, and I think they really have a very great position in the Finnish art scene, and maybe even larger art scene. It felt like a really great opportunity to be able to exhibit here. And I also really appreciate the 3 different galleries plus the media books together, because I think the exchange between different artists and also different audiences from different artists is really important, so that the work spreads beyond your own network and kind of gets experienced by people from all kinds of places and networks.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy to be here and also talk about my work in general.
It's all lovely.
It's more awkward on film than in person, though.
Yeah, that's the whole point. You have to break the ice somehow. Okay, that's it. And kiitos.